Hello everyone! So, I've mentioned in other videos, I've been slowly dipping my toes in the whole foiling thing. Spellbinders had released this, I forget how long ago. I have been waiting, I've been saving up, finally made the dive, got the Spellbinders Glimmer hot foil system. This box has been sitting here for a while. But since I'm doing a blog hop and I have some dies, I wanted to try this out. So, right out of the box is the heat plate to plug in. You do get a couple rolls of their hot foil, and then this will be like the base that plugs in. You do get a couple of hot foil dies as well as best wishes. Okay, fun. So technically you have everything you need aside from a die cutting machine, which you do need for this. I have my Platinum 6 by Spellbinders. This can technically work with other machines as well, but obviously when it's made by Spellbinders, the best one is the Platinum 6. And then there's this pair of very heavy duty tweezers, which I assume, yeah, you would use these when you have like the really hot dies on the plate. When it's on, you'll use this to like move them around so that you don't burn yourself. I wonder how hot this actually gets. So then we've got a shim. I would assume this is for like setting on your work surface to put, like to take the hot dies when you're done with it, to sit on here, the silicone mat, you know, heat resistant. Spacer pad. Okay. Okay, I'm kind of excited, I'm kind of intimidated. But let's get this going. Okay, so you've got the base, there's the on-off switch, and then the plug-in. So I am going to have to probably move a few things around just to be able to plug this in for, and be able to keep it on camera while I'm doing. And yes, if you are not at all familiar with this, thankfully it says right on this base plate, like, or the heating plate, not intended for die cutting. With the hot foil dies, they aren't dies. There is no cutting surface on here. That is, because I've seen chatter about that. People that have purchased, you know, hot foil sets, like I purchased, like I got this one. When I got this, I ordered this one as well. But the actual, like this one actually has some dies in it. But the ones that are meant for the foiling are not dies. Like they don't cut anything. They are literally meant to letterpress and to use foil with. And they're, yeah, they're thick. They're thick and they're heavyweight. They're not thin at all. Yeah. So, kind of excited. So this will clip into here. Yep. And then we just gotta plug it in and figure out what on earth I'm doing. So that's what I will do right now, actually. Okay. So I'm gonna turn this on. The light comes on, and then I know this is going to need to warm up for a while to get good and hot. Okay, I've been slowly stocking up on all the colors of the Glimmer hot foil. That is another thing. The hot foil system like this doesn't just work with any foil. It needs to be a heat activated foil, whereas a lot of the other foils we use, you can use with adhesives, etc. But those ones will not work with this in this sense. I know there's other ways around it with other things, but yeah. I think I want to try with some of these sentiments. I got the holiday sentiments. I've got Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, Sparkle and Joy. That'd be fun to do some sentiments with this. And then I can just die cut them with the coordinating die. But I think Merry Christmas is the main one I want to use. So, exciting. Alrighty. Platform's ready. It's very hot. I also pulled out the sentiments from the ornament set before I get to those. I need my hot foil. Okay, I'm gonna be a little ambitious and do 3 at once. We'll see how well this goes. So what I want to do is get these lined up. Okay, and then you hit the timer button to let those heat up on here. Cut the foil to narrower than the first pieces so that I have less overfoiling. This one has already gotten warm. Good cools. There we go. So I got my foil on here, just like so. It's probably a lot easier to do this, like start with one, not like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them, lining them up on a straight line, because of course I'm making it more difficult, but sentiments. I love sentiments. So, more cardstock. I'm not super concerned with the cardstock being perfectly straight, because I'm going to cut it down, but I have my cardstock. I have my thin shim, my spacer pad, and just two pieces of cardstock as an additional shim. There, that's a little better. Okay, so I have all of that ready to go for this. So I'm going to lay those on top. And then run this through my Platinum 6. Here we go. Okay. These guys can all cool off. A little bit of overfoiling again. You can use the sand mono eraser. This works really good on like watercolor paper. That's the video I was watching of Debbie Hughes. This just removed any of the overfoiling off the watercolor paper. But on just regular smooth cardstock, I'm finding just a regular white eraser is also working really, really well. And I'm not pressing very hard because I don't want to press into like the letterpress areas where I want the foil. And it's all coming, any of the excess is coming off. Some of the more little stubborn areas I can lightly hit with the sand eraser. Oh, it's so pretty. It's so pretty. Alrighty, now we're into the voiceover portion because I was in the zone, not really talking, listening to an audiobook, yada yada yada. So, now I'm using the ornament portion from the Ornament Glimmer hot foil. I let it heat up on the machine, added my plates. This time I did add the 2 cardstock shims since it's larger and I wanted to create that more of that letterpress look. And I had trimmed down some Starburst Glimmer foil. So ran that through with the blue cardstock and it just, there's something about it, you know, it's like magic every time. So just like with the sentiments and whatnot, I found, well, and actually with this specifically, this image, Any of the little, there'll be little like excess areas because it's very detailed. There's little dots and openings and everything else. I found that if I just ran over it very lightly, almost no pressure with my white eraser, that removed those little areas. Like, you could almost do it with your fingers, but I just went really lightly over it with that eraser, and then it was good to go. And then I decided, since I'd already, you know, the ornament was heated up, it's sitting on the machine, why not do this over again? And technically, I could have just kept going. Like, you could almost like mass produce this over and over again. You just keep putting it back in the machine, let it heat up, cut your foil, add the cardstock, you're good to go. So I added different foil this time. I used the Crimson Stars foil, and I used the excess, or not the excess, but the foil piece that I used the first time as my guide to trim out a second piece. And again, now that I'm thinking about it, it's like, I could just stack pieces of foil together, you know, and cut them all at once. And yeah, you could just go to town mass producing it. Love it. So ran that through the exact same way. I had pressed the timer button and made sure that the, you know, the base was heated up, etc. And then ran this through with the red. And then same thing, removed any little excess with my erasers. And then went on to the sentiments. So with this one, I'd used the sentiments earlier, which I will get to with my last cards. But the sentiments for this set are kind of meant to kind of go in the center. So I set those in the hot foil machine, let those heat up, and then I added 2 little squares of those same 2 foils, the Starburst Glimmer and the Crimson Stars. And then I put white cardstock on top. And then this time ran it through no cardstock shims, just the plastic little plate and the spacer. I'm going to run this through my die cut machine. And same thing. With this, with sentiments, I find I don't get really any overfoiling. But the only thing that I noticed was there's a tiny little bit in between the letters that is sitting there. And I just used my white eraser and very lightly went over it. And it removed that little excess bit. And these were perfect. Like, perfectly foiled. There was no overfoiling. Everything was going so well. And I shared all that, you know, beginning part because these are literally my first attempts. So if I can do this, if I can figure this out I've barely watched anyone else's videos, I wanted to see if I could just, you know, figure this out without burning myself or burning down my office. And it just works. I had so much fun. These cards, I couldn't stop, hence me making multiple cards. So with both of these, I die cut them with the oval die that comes in the ornament set. So I die cut the sentiment this way. You could also die cut like the oval from the ornament and create kind of a shaker element if you wanted. Like, so many options. But I just kept it simple, die cut those. And then on the blue cardstock, I sponged on some Audrey Blue ink from Simon Says Stamp. I just used one of my Picket Fence life-changing blender brushes just to give it that little extra something. So I did that with both of the card fronts. And then in the ornament set, there is several dies. There's a little like pine branch and a little leaf branch. There is these poinsettia dies, all of that. So with the poinsettias, I added some ink as well, just to kind of, you know, deepen them and give them that little extra bit of dimension. So I'm just using some Schoolhouse red ink from Simon Says Stamp and just one of the smaller blending brushes. And it just gives it some extra depth. There's already a ton of texture. These ones, especially the poinsettia ones, there's a ton of like veining and whatnot that the die, you know, impresses and like cuts right into the cardstock. So I did all my blending, and I also added some snowflakes. Just, you know, Christmas cards, why not add some snowflakes? This is the Frozen Fractals set from Simon that came out last year or the year before, something like that. I will have links, as always, to all the supplies I used. But I just stamped it kind of around the perimeter with some white pigment ink. This is Hero Arts Unicorn White Pigment ink. Then I cleaned up my stamps, and I used that same Audrey Blue ink to stamp them onto the inside of the card as well. Because I always have to finish the insides of my cards. They're just not complete otherwise. So I kind of tied it all together by stamping the snowflakes with that blue ink. And then I'm going to stamp a sentiment from the Simon Says Stamp Inside Holiday Greeting set. And I'm going to stamp that with that same Schoolhouse red ink that I used to blend onto the little poinsettia images.
or poinsettia die cuts. So stamp those sentiments, and then I'm going to start assembling my card fronts here. So I've already got my foiled ornament, and then I'm going to adhere the die cut ovals with the foiled sentiments. Once I get those adhered in place, I can adhere all of the die cuts from that ornament glimmer foil dies. So I'm going to adhere, I die cut the little pine branches from a couple of different shades of green cardstock, added a little bit of adhesive, stuck those into place, and then I also die cut the little leaf branch. I just die cut it, I can't speak, die cut it from white cardstock. And then I'm going to layer the poinsettias, and then there's a center as well, like a little center die that I die cut from black cardstock. I didn't adhere that into place. And then I repeat the process on the second card front, and then I'm going to adhere these to my card bases. And both of these card fronts I'd cut down before I blended the ink or anything. I'd cut them down to slightly smaller than A2 card fronts so that it's kind of framed by the white card bases. And both of these are A2 cards, so 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 A2 size. So that finishes off cards number 1 and 2 with their foiled wonderfulness. So then I went on and did a couple cards using the Deck the Halls wafer die. So to create my card fronts for this one, I am using the Simon Says Stamp Pine Bow stencil. It's taped it into place over my green cardstock. And I'm just going to blend some of Simon's green leaf ink over that with another one of the blending brushes. And I'll repeat this process on the second card front. But basically kind of doing very similar techniques and using the same color palette throughout all these cards. Keeps things a little more simple. It's a little more streamlined because I end up, as always, with like less than a square foot of working space and a ton of stuff piled up everywhere. But anyway, blended that onto my background. Repeated the process, and then blended around the edges with some green apple ink, and then stamped those same snowflakes with the unicorn white pigment ink. So then once my backgrounds are created, I now can add the ornament, which I'm going to create with the Deck the Halls wafer dies from Spellbinders. This die set comes as a set of, well, there's multiple dies in this set, but the actual main ornament die is 2 dies. Which at first I kind of was like, why don't they just make it as 1? But I like that it gives you the options, because you can use the outline die from this set and die cut a window. And you could create a shaker, or you could inlay, do whatever you want. I do recommend a metal shim. I added that to my sandwich stack here in my Platinum 6 because this has like so much detail. The metal shim really helped to make sure that this cut all the way through, because I'm cutting through some heavyweight white cardstock with this. And then I used both the outline and the center like detail die in one. But you can see that outline die is an individual piece, which is also going to work nicely to die cut just some solid red cardstock here that I can adhere that to. So I can back it with that. You could back it with glitter paper, would look really nice. Like I had mentioned, you could also do like a window, create a shaker. Options, so many options. But I kept everything simple, and then I die cut to the topper. There's a little bow. There's a little straight piece, like for the hanger to hang the wafer die. So I die cut that from some gold cardstock. And then it also cut, there's a little snowflake dies in this set. So I die cut those from white cardstock. And then before I get to adhere everything, I am going to add more of that red ink to the edges of these red die cut ornaments, just again to kind of give it that extra little bit of depth and dimension. So just went around the edges and blended on that ink, and then I'm going to adhere the white die cut cardstock to the base of the ornament with some craft tacky glue, and then I'll adhere the little gold like ornament topper to the top of that. And then I'll get to assembling these cards. So it's just a matter of like figuring out where you want to put everything. And since that's why I like did the pine bows and everything in the background, just kind of the idea of like a Christmas tree. So got my little like hanger kind of situated on my card front. And then I can adhere the ornament and the little bow and then the snowflakes. Once I get the snowflakes adhered into place, off camera, I just flip over the card fronts and trim off the excess with my scissors. And then I repeat that process for the second card. Just, again, like doing kind of mass production. Like you could just do multiples like over and over and over again if you wanted. But as usual, I'm always wanting to work on the next thing. So I only did 2 cards of each, but I'm kind of wanting to like use some of the other colors of foil, do different color combos. I'm getting ahead of myself. Anyway, I stenciled the insides of the cards as well and stamped another sentiment from that Inside Holiday Greeting set with that same Schoolhouse Red ink. Once the insides were complete, I can adhere the outsides with the craft tacky glue since they're all assembled, and I trimmed off the excess with my scissors. So all I have to do to finish off these 2 cards is to adhere them to the outside and they're done. And same thing, these are standard A2 card size. So that finished off cards 3 and 4. And then for my final cards, this is where I'm going to use the sentiments that I experimented with at the very beginning of the video. I didn't want those to go to waste, obviously. So I pulled out the Mary Hugs wafer dies. This little puppy dog is adorable. This was originally what like my first main plan, and then I got sidetracked with all the foiling and wonderfulness. But I came back to this. So I took the same red cardstock as I used on the other cards, and I just stenciled on a diagonal stripe with that red ink, stamped the snowflakes with the white ink, and then I die cut the puppy dog with some black cardstock, some white cardstock, and some pink. Assembled him, and then with that die set there's a little bow tie, there's a little pair of glasses, which just kills me. It's the cutest thing ever. So I die cut his glasses from the gold cardstock as well and adhered them into place, and then it's the same thing. It was like, I want to make like 100 of these. He's so cute. And there's also a little crown, like really adhered the little crown into place. And then the foiled sentiments I die cut with that coordinating wafer die that comes in the holiday sentiments plate. So die cut that, adhered that into place right over kind of the bottom area of the puppy dog. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the second sentiment and the second card, second dog, same thing. So trim off the excess with my scissors. The inside of the card, I did the exact same thing as the first cards. I just stamped the snowflakes with that Audrey blue ink and then stamped a sentiment with the red, and it was done. So I adhered that card front to the card base, and that finished off all of the cards for today. This is actually part of a blog hop, so if you're still watching, check out my blog. It'll be linked directly below. I'll have supplies linked below as well. There is tons of inspiration, there's giveaways, all kinds of stuff. So I will have all that info on my blog for you to check out if you're interested. Thank you all so much for watching, for subscribing, for thumbs upping and commenting on my videos. I really appreciate it. I will see you all very soon in the next one. Bye.